So, number six. So, most of the first digestive cavity, liver, stomach, digestion, small intense, intestinal bowel. From the very beginning of idea of the course was very to show our following of the beauty of generation, universal laws of nature regarding the vital function of all living being, not to overload the memory with numbers, terms, and facts. Principal relationships between different aspects of life is much more interesting and productive for understanding of nutrition than just collection of selective data, even if they are important. We guess that the majority of our auditorium is more or less familiar with the standard fact that anatomy and biochemistry of nutrition due to other relevant courses, reading and handbook. It would be some familiarity with evolution and comparability psychology of the digestion system. Our text is devoted to the attraction of internal views of the major living phenomena, although it might be useful also to enhance this info with the data from other sources. This is why this chapter might be like notes for homework, especially for students who have already passed relevant lectures in anatomy and physiology, biochemistry, or general biology. My duty in this lecture is to just adjust some short comments regarding the subject. As we already know, nutrition as the way to seize material from the outside world for unit needs the oldest function of all living beings. On the initial steps of the evolution, this function executed in the simplest way. Water substances caught into invagination of cell membrane enter the inner space of the cell where the bubble copulated with digestive values rich of hydrolytic enzymes. These enzymes and this, this, inte- this integrated water substances and made them used for the cell materials. The productivity of such digestive mechanism is not so effective, but is not enough to support one of few cells as a primitive organism. By the way, viruses actually explore the same mechanism by occupying the whole cell. On the next step of evolution, multicellular organisms met the problem of efficacy of such primitive ways to consume substances was not enough to supply molecular organisms where some of the cells are busy with others than nutrition duties. One branch of this living being went on a way of establishing a mechanism of cell production of the major substrate for and chemical synthesis. Those who mastered photosynthesis became plants. They produce main initiate substances, carbohydrates from CO2, capturing energy of the light and rest materials for the inner metabolism. They obtain mostly by the similar intercellular enzymatic processing. The other multicellular organism which didn't get such mechanism of cell production is food. When another way, the improved mechanism of food gathering. This part of living being became the animals. They devoted a cavity inside their bodies, where luckily a big piece of water materials can be caught for the uh, future indigestion and consumption. Actually, they devoted the first primitive digestive system. The sample of such primitive digestive system can be seen on a simple hydra. Hydra's digestive system is rather primitive. It's actually a bag inside the body where cells of the inner surface of the bag use parts of the consumed food, digested them into acceptable molecules, and then pass and share these molecules to other cells of the body. But even in the early steps of formation of the digestive system, there appear need of some specialization. They enter into the back needs a tooth to catch and analyze uh, candidate food to be objective, and it needed the exit for unused substances. So around the primitive mouse or hydra should be some tools to catch the food and some receptors to analyze it. The hydra combined the enter and exit, but a more evolutionary advised organism found that it would be better if the entered and exit would be separated. Solution for that problem is tube, not a bag. Worm-like creatures build their directive system in the form of tube, which starts near the front end of the body and ends near the end of it. Tube-like digestive system has additional benefit compared to bag-like system. The last of one works in the same inhale exhale, while the tunnel lets the food process the food continuously. Even more, the enter of this tunnel became released from the function of anus, and that supposed to be ability to form governing organs, which function was to detect food, analyze it, and organize the way to catch it. That is why our brain is in the head, not in the butt. And each next step of evolution and adaptation of animals was followed the specialization of the regions of the digestive tunnels, the gastrointestinal tract. Let very shortly overview the function specialization of these regions along the digestive tract. Here we will concentrate on most advanced steps of the evolution specialized in of it, but there are many interesting facts and observation on intermediate and special specific adaptation of each part of the digestive system, which can be found in literature by those who are interested. They enter into digestive tunnels now we can call mouth. First of all, because of the primary role or consists of catching the food and do what right is accompanied by a number of analyzers. Smell detectors, nose, visual detectors, eyes, taste detectors, receptors in mouth, mucosa, and the very important neuronal network of the development of strategy and tactics to catch the food, the brain or ganglion. Picture 10. Inside the mouse, there are tools of the initial mechanism processing of the food, lips, jaw, teeth, and tongue. Special muscular provides the ability, special muscles provide the ability to do the work of these sub organs. Lips and tongues mix and move food. Jaws and teeth crush the large pieces of it. In many cases, teeth pass additional specialization itself. Some of them made to keep the food for forms, some of them to cut it in scissors, and some of the crush hard parts of the food, molars. Uh, Also, the mouse cavity is the first chemical laboratory. The first detained contract tests the consumer materials occurred here as well as watering the food, its primary sterilization, and adding some hydraulic enzymes, amylase, amylase. Watering and hydrolysis of the food also helps primary testing of the food before it will be a good feature. Big parts of this work is performed numerous saliva glands. After the mouse, preliminary preparation food goes into the muscular tube to be delivered into the main uh, uh, well, after the mouse, preliminary preparation food goes into the muscular tube to the delivery of the main conveyor of its processing. This tube can esophagus, and its function is rather simple: to deliver food into a gastric cavity. Esoph- Esophagus is a muscular tube which is in many animals can work in both ways, but some animals save only one way and transfer food through the esophagus. Thus, rats cannot vomit, so they have to be especially prudent in what they eat. The other animals, ruminants, the esophagus, or in opposite, have to move food through the esophagus in both ways, many times while normal eating for the additional chewing of it. Also, in some special cases, in birds, for instance, there is a part of the esophagus and gulter where food which needs autolytic fermentation and additional watering can be stored in a little longer. Seed-eating birds have a bigger goiter, and prairie birds have smaller one. Stomach or gastric serve of digestion in several ways. It stored food, it additionally deeply sterilized it, and it's the space where the root hydrolysis of maize substances starts. The stored or the big amount of food in the gastric cavity serve as compromise between intermittent food consumption and longer its processing. For us humans, it means that we can feel full all the long time and turn our attention to other forms of captivity. In general, predators which consume more concentrated food, meat and fish, need a smaller stomach than herbivores. But some special species which specialize on cellular rich food need significant more time to digest their nutrition poor food. They even develop compartmentalization of the food. In horses, for instance, such a separation of working zone is just a function, but in cows and other ruminants, it's the anatomical cow gastric presented in form of four visible different cavities. Picture 10. Storing the food is not only a function of the part of the digestive tract, the other ones are additional evaluation of the consumer portion of it. Appear that food which gets here is not good where it there is still a good chance to throw it back. Another garlic function is gastric function of it to start hydrolysis of big conglomerates of food, mostly proteins. Strong acid secretion plus proteases, percid and trypsid, first of all, attack molecules of food. Besides host enzymes, this work can be done by hydrolytic enzymes of the food itself too. Autolysis on behalf of those who ate the prey. And we shouldn't forget the informational role of the stomach. Signals from here inform the brain, intestine, and other organs about the step of food processing to prepare connections of connected organs for their work. The next step in the technology of food processing starts when preliminary modified food, now it could be called uh, chyme, enters a small intestine. This tube is smaller in diameter and indeed and that responds to the function of the small intestine. Here is no need to pass through big pieces of food. They are already transformed into jelly and gruel. But it's very important that each molecule of this goo would have a chance to contract with the intestine walls. Page 10. Then, of course, some digestion, especially still large polymers, happen in the intestinal cavity space where processes are supported by soluble enzymes produced by pancreas and other mostly small and dispersed glands. For the digestion of fatty materials, the liver injects into the intestine had secret bite for the dissolution of hydrophobic substances, but the main digestive work happens in the outer surface of intestinal wall cell by the mechanism known as membrane digestion. It was counted that about 90% of bonds between monomers occurred in a zone of membrane digestion. Uh, to to do this large amount of work, which with help of membrane association mechanism, the intestine needs enormous space of intestinal surfaces, and the anatomy of this organ produces folds, villi, and microvilli, and the small intestine let it do that. As the additional benefit of such structure and organization of the working space, it provides almost sterility of the final steps of hydrolytics. Bacteria and microbes, just because their size, can reach the place where the most unusable and of the microflora monomers appears. Major digestive processes demands time and space, and this demands it's satisfied by the length of the small intestine. Of course, its length can vary individually and from the species to species, and it depends on the quality of food, usual food. But it's in turn, it provides the possibility of somewhat divided different intestinal processes. We call that proximum distal gradient. Yes, in the case of need after the surgery of the intestine, for example, upper and lower segmentation of the small intestine can take on the function of abstinent, but normally the beginning of the end of the small intestine perform somewhat different jobs. The movements of the charm along the gut happen due to contractions of the smooth muscles in it. In certain ways, smooth muscles are rather independent and perform mostly orders of the peripheral nervous system. But it doesn't mean that the velocity of chime passage cannot be adjusted according to effectiveness of the digestion and other factors. Mostly propulsive transportation of chime moves is from up till down. It is peristaltic wave in some cases in some mechanisms provided anti-peristaltic passage of chyme from lower regions of intestine to upper zone. Thus, rabbits and other rodents use antiperistal passage of the impeded digestion of undigested a portion of chyme. Or when the most useful substance subtruded of food better enzyme are taken in the smaller intestine and passed through the vessel network to the other organs of the organism. The door at the end of it, uh, sphen- sphen- sphincter, opens, and the rest of the processed food comes to the large intestine. Large intestine finalizes the digestion and absorbs the useful materials from the food and utilizes moleculars from the host, which are selected into the gastrointestinal tract in upper divisions. But the main role of this part of the digestion system is to give space to the microbiome, its kingdom of microflora. Approximately here, some animals have a offshoot of the intestine tunnels. Recently, it was proposed that this that end serve as storage of microflora in case the area induce loss of the main microbiotes. The role of microbiomes becomes known only in recent couple of decades, and it continues to bring new data. We will analyze the role or functions of the microbiome in a special chapter. Okay, let's stop here for a second.